concerned are you that Russia this time is not bluffing?
They've invaded before. We are certainly committed to helping Ukraine defend its sovereign territory.
Do you accept Putin's red line on Ukraine?
I won't accept anybody's red line.
Hotspots, the border with Ukraine as Russia builds up troops there. Taiwan as China flies air wings over that territory. Let's bring in our panel. Leslie Marshall, Democratic strategist. Hugh Hewitt, syndicated talk radio host. And Kimberly Strassel, a member of the editorial board at the Wall Street Journal. Hugh, let me start with you. First of all, welcome to Special Report.
Thank you, Brad.
Your thoughts on this moment when we get ready to see President Biden meet virtually with Russian leader Vladimir Putin tomorrow. What could he say that makes the Russians back off?
It's a moment of peril, Brett. I think he needs to say very clearly that we will strike back against any aggressive action beyond what you've already done in Ukraine. I read the transcript of your interview with Secretary of Defense Austin, who said he didn't want to publish red lines. He thought it was never a good idea to do that. I think President Biden has to lay down a red line, or we'll have a repeat of 2014 under President Obama when President Putin ordered the invasion successful of Ukraine, seizing the Crimea. If they are not specific about what will happen following such an invasion, I expect Vladimir Putin to take as aggressive an action as he thinks he can get away with. He always has.
Yeah, Leslie, do you buy the argument or the thought that Russia with Ukraine, China with Taiwan is this kind of probing of the Biden administration and how far these countries can go?
Oh, I do think both countries, and I don't think they've planned in cahoots to simultaneously poke the bear, but they're trying to poke the bear. So regardless of who's president and what they think, if they fear Joe Biden or not, they better fear the United States military, because Joe Biden certainly would, to support Ukraine and their sovereignty, would send troops, and we have the strongest military in the world. Russia knows that. China knows that. You and I rarely agree. We debated each other in 2013 here in California in person and had a lot of fun, but I will agree with you on this. We need to be the one that puts down that red line. I agree when President Biden says that he will not accept others' red lines, and I do think that this isn't a time for the president to shine. He has bipartisan support to be tough and to support Ukraine, and in addition to that, he has a lot of experience with foreign policy and with foreign leaders and with people very much like Vladimir Putin.
You know, Kimberly, there are a lot of people, though, concerned in the U.S. that, let's say, Ukraine was invited into NATO, or let's say the U.S. just pledged to support Ukraine in any action Russia took, that we'd be somehow drawn in to another major conflict in a place that we, as a country, collectively don't particularly want to be, even though that may be in our international interest to help Ukraine as we would.
Yeah, well, if you look at Afghanistan, that would seem to be a position that the Biden administration particularly does not want to be, given the haste with which it went to withdraw from that commitment, which, by the way, is probably behind this poking of the bear that Leslie is alluding to. But there are other things that can be done, by the way, without fully sending troops, and things that Biden ought to be doing at the moment, including the selling of military supplies to Ukraine, including lethal aid, and some very, very clear lines on very stiff international sanctions, and particularly when it comes to banking, if Russia were to make this move. There's plenty of things that could be done instead of just signing off on the Nord Stream pipeline.
Hugh, what about the diplomatic ban of the Olympics that the administration is announcing today, which, by the way, doesn't affect athletes going or not going? It means administration officials and VIP diplomats attending or not, and they wouldn't be in this ban.
It is better late than never. It is better something rather than nothing, but it's not nearly enough. There's a genocide underway in China. It is a very gradual genocide. It involves 1 million people locked up in prison camps. It means 500,000 children separated from their families, forced sterilization of women, arbitrary and mandatory marriages of Han men with Uyghur women. It is a genocide. Then Secretary of State Pompeo declared it. Now Secretary of State Blinken has affirmed it. So it shouldn't just be our diplomats. Our corporations should not be going. We should not be allowing the profiting by that regime, the Chinese Communist Party and President Xi. The new documents released by the Wall Street Journal over the last week prove that he authorized this genocide. I can't imagine that we want our companies involved with, which that is the moral equivalent of what the Nazis did in the 40s, what happened in Rwanda, what happened in Syria, and what happened in Cambodia. It's a genocide. So a good first step. We need more.
Yeah, Leslie, I asked, and a piece of this aired in that little clip from my interview with the defense secretary. I said, you know, President Reagan back in 1983 called the Soviet Union the evil empire when talking about its communist goals. And was it time for the Biden administration to start talking about the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, and its communist ambitions and what it's planning to do in more clear terms? He said that they're starting to, but it's been inching along, hasn't it?
Yes, and this is another area where you have bipartisan support. Look, Americans love to hear any leader or somebody running to be the leader of this country to be tough on China and to go tough on China. As a Democrat, as a liberal, Hugh, I'm 2 for 2 with the human rights abuses that are just disgusting and the genocide that exists in China. I will also go and say that this boycott is not enough. You can't penalize these athletes that have worked for years. They need to be able to be in the Olympics, but the Olympics doesn't need to be in China. And the United States and Joe Biden have enough power to convince, I believe, the rest of the world to say, you know what, we're not going to go there because of this genocide, these human rights abuses. We want it moved.
I have 10 seconds here, Kimberly.
Well, they also have to decide what they want, what their ambitions are. If their first priority is keeping China on side for climate change, then they're not going to take any tougher steps.
There you go. Panel, thank you so much.